Look at the temperature inside your house right now. Maybe it's 68 degrees, maybe 72. You probably haven't thought about it all day. You adjusted the thermostat once, and that was the end of it. But for almost the entirety of human history, warmth was never guaranteed. For more than 300,000 years, every one of your ancestors faced winter with no central heating, no insulated walls, no electricity, and no thermostat quietly maintaining comfort in the background. They had stone tools, animal remains, fire, and landscapes cold enough to kill an unprepared person in a single night. Yet somehow, they didn't merely endure those winters, they flourished.
And the methods they developed were so sophisticated that modern scientists are still impressed by them. To understand how extraordinary this was, we first need to understand what Ice Age winter actually meant. Imagine temperatures falling to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit across the Eurasian steppe. Not the brief cold you experience walking from your house to your car, a different kind of cold entirely. The kind that attacks exposed skin within minutes. The kind where inhaling hurts. The kind where wind becomes an active danger rather than an inconvenience. A modern person suddenly placed into those conditions without preparation would probably not survive until morning.
Popular culture usually imagines Ice Age people huddled miserably inside caves, barely surviving around tiny fires. Archaeology tells a very different story. Our ancestors were not simply survivors, they were engineers. And one of archaeology's biggest misconceptions concerns where they actually lived. Caves were important, but they were far from the whole story. At sites such as Kostenki in Russia, with evidence stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, archaeologists discovered large circular depressions intentionally dug into the earth. Some extended several feet below ground level. These were not natural features.
Excavation marks preserved in sediments show deliberate construction. The reason is simple. Below the surface, temperatures remain significantly more stable. Just a few feet underground, the Earth can be 20 to 30 degrees warmer than the freezing air above. Instead of fighting winter directly, many early humans partially moved beneath it. But the true sophistication of Ice Age engineering appears later. At Dolní Věstonice, in what is now the Czech Republic, dating to roughly 26,000 years ago, archaeologists uncovered evidence for remarkably advanced winter shelters. These structures employed multiple layers, each serving a specific purpose. Animal hides lined the interior, with fur facing inward, trapping warm air around occupants. Layers of dried grasses and moss helped manage moisture.
Outer coverings made from reeds, bark, and additional hides protected against wind while still allowing humidity to escape. This was not accidental, it was thermal engineering. Modern houses rely on insulation, weather barriers, and moisture control systems. Ice Age builders achieved the same goals using entirely different materials. The science was identical, only the tools changed. And then archaeologists uncovered something even more astonishing. Across parts of Ukraine and Western Russia, at sites including Mezherich and Kostenki, researchers discovered entire dwellings built primarily from mammoth bones. Not temporary windbreaks, not simple shelters, actual houses.
Massive mammoth skulls formed foundations. Long, curved tusks created structural frames. Hundreds of additional bones reinforced walls and filled gaps. Everything was then covered with carefully prepared animal hides designed to repel wind and shed snow. This was architecture in every meaningful sense. Experimental reconstructions have demonstrated just how effective these structures were. Using only modest fires, properly reconstructed mammoth bone houses can maintain interior temperatures 40 to 50 degrees warmer than the outside environment. In some cases, their thermal performance rivals or exceeds modern Arctic shelters.
Think about what that means. People armed only with stone tools, animal hides, and accumulated knowledge engineered homes capable of matching modern cold weather designs. But shelter alone was never enough. Everything depended on fire. Fire was not simply a source of heat, it was the center of Ice Age life. Archaeological evidence suggests heating systems inside these shelters were carefully organized. Central hearths supplied primary warmth, secondary hearths created specialized activity zones. Certain areas were used for food preparation, others for tool manufacture. The warmest sections likely sheltered infants, children, and older adults. The arrangement was intentional. Nothing was random. Fuel management was equally sophisticated.
In treeless environments, wood could be scarce or entirely absent, so people adapted. Dried mammoth dung became fuel. Bones were processed and burned in specific ways to maximize energy output. Chemical analyses of hearth remains indicate that Ice Age people selected and prepared fuels deliberately. They understood their resources. They optimized them. In many ways, they practiced energy management. Ventilation presented another challenge. Without airflow, moisture from breathing and cooking accumulates inside enclosed spaces.
In freezing temperatures, that moisture eventually freezes, damaging both shelter and inhabitants. Excavations at several Paleolithic sites reveal evidence for controlled airflow systems. Lower openings likely admitted fresh air. Higher openings near roof peaks allowed warm, humid air to escape. Modern Arctic engineers studying these reconstructions have repeatedly expressed surprise at how advanced these designs appear. But perhaps the most overlooked aspect of Ice Age winter life happened after darkness fell. For most of human history, people did not sleep the way modern people do.
Historical records from many cultures suggest humans traditionally slept in two separate phases: several hours of sleep, a period of wakefulness, then several more hours before dawn. This pattern was dramatically demonstrated in a famous 1990s experiment conducted by psychiatrist Thomas Weir. When modern participants lived for extended periods without artificial light, every participant eventually adopted the same two-stage sleep cycle. In other words, segmented sleep may represent humanity's original pattern, and those quiet nighttime hours mattered.
Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying the Juhawantsi people of the Kalahari Desert. She found that daytime conversation overwhelmingly focused on practical concerns, such as food resources and daily tasks. Nighttime was different. Around evening fires, stories dominated conversation. Myths, legends, experiences, teaching, entertainment. The campfire became humanity's first theater, first classroom, and first library. Even some of the earliest artistic expressions appear connected to these long winter nights. Many famous Paleolithic figurines and artworks have been discovered within winter habitation sites. Researchers suspect that extended periods spent indoors during severe weather encouraged artistic activity. Some of humanity's defining cultural achievements may have emerged not despite winter, but because of it. None of this happened spontaneously. Constructing a mammoth-bone dwelling required enormous effort. Experimental archaeology suggests that 8 to 10 adults might spend several weeks building a single shelter. That means construction had to begin months before winter arrived. Seasonal indicators preserved in archaeological sites strongly support this conclusion. Ice Age people planned ahead. They tracked seasons, they anticipated future conditions. Winter preparation began long before the first snowfall. Food storage followed the same principle. In regions containing permafrost, underground storage chambers functioned as natural freezers. Connected to shelters by short passageways, these storage spaces preserved meat throughout winter while reducing exposure during storms. Clothing reflected identical engineering principles. Different animal furs served different purposes. Inner layers trapped warmth, outer layers blocked wind and moisture. Long before synthetic fabrics existed, humans had already developed multi-layer insulation systems based entirely on observation and experience, and maintenance never stopped. Archaeological evidence shows continual repairs throughout winter occupations. Damaged hides were replaced, insulation was renewed, structural elements were repaired. These shelters were not static buildings, they were living systems requiring constant management. Eventually, as climates warmed and forests expanded, much of this knowledge slowly disappeared. Not because humanity forgot overnight, because changing environments made many techniques unnecessary. Ironically, modern researchers have spent decades rediscovering principles our ancestors mastered tens of thousands of years ago. Some Arctic survival programs and emergency shelter systems now incorporate ideas remarkably similar to those revealed by Paleolithic archaeology. We abandoned this knowledge, then science brought us back to it. So return to that thermostat on your wall. The comfortable temperature inside your home would have seemed miraculous to your ancestors, not because they were incapable of creating warmth, they absolutely were, but because achieving it demanded planning, labor, engineering, cooperation, and constant attention. Every warm night represented weeks of preparation and generations of accumulated knowledge. The stories you tell at night descend directly from stories once shared beside fires in mammoth-bone houses while blizzards raged outside. You did not invent comfort, you inherited it. From people who faced unimaginable cold with nothing but ingenuity, cooperation, and an absolute refusal to freeze. The next time you adjust your thermostat without thinking, remember that warmth is not ordinary. For most of human history, it was one of humanity's greatest achievements.